Good. I was going to say good afternoon, but I guess it depends where you're joining us and what time. And that's very apt for today. But welcome to Tecman Talks Dynamics. Bit of a different episode for you today. We've got a couple of regulars, Liz and James, that are joining us, but also really pleased to have Kenny from Microsoft. He's a program manager around the D365 Business Central product. Obviously, the thing that we talk about every few weeks. So it's great to have someone like Kenny joining us. It came about really from a post that Kenny made. He commented on one of the videos we did on Christmas around. We were looking at what we were hoping was coming into the product. It was pure speculation from our side. And then Kenny he said he'd enjoyed understanding, from a partner point of view, where we were coming from, things we were looking forward to. And we invited him on, and very kindly he's given up some of his time. He is joining us from North Dakota in the States. So when I said good afternoon, it's definitely not an afternoon for Kenny. But I'm just going to throw over to Kenny. Kenny, do you want to give us a quick minute or two around your background and what you do for the team?
Sure. I joined Microsoft 8 years ago. Before that, I have different roles as a developer, as a consultant, primarily in database-related things, analytics, data warehouses, things like that, security. And then in Business Central, I am a program manager primarily in the server team. This is where I have my desk, but I also have other responsibilities there across different teams in the product group, such as telemetry, performance, stability, and reporting and analytics, which is something I have put a lot of time in over the last 3 years. And when you mentioned North Dakota, this is my second stay in Fargo, North Dakota. The product strategy for analytics, what you actually have seen and are about to see in the next releases, was founded when I was here last time 3 years ago. So it's a North Dakota strategy, and now it's being rolled out all over. So yeah.
That must be really cool to see that take place, and all those things you talked about come to fruition in the land. And he said it's good timing. We just got given the spring release in our test sandboxes now, so that's down the preview, so people can have a play with that. And we're about a month out from when that actually shipped in production tenants as well. So that's all good.
And
so
I have to interject here and say that I think Kenny's been a little bit modest. He and I have had many conversations over that 8 years, Kenny, over lots of different subjects, but I think the reporting and analytics piece that we've seen has been game-changing in Business Central, in particularly the last 2.5 years, from analysis views through to Excel reporting, through now to Power BI. And I think, my understanding is you're been central and responsible for all of those. So I think it's been a magical journey for us, from going in on every implementation and pretty much mandating that there were third-party reporting tools. Now, actually, that's no longer necessary, and the majority of the implementations now don't include those. I think we've got a legacy situation where some of the older users don't understand what the new capabilities are, but that's a view to solve. And
thank you for that, James. Yeah. So I think with everything, it's a team effort, and I'm a very public figure with this. So I'll take some credit, but there's tons of kudos that needs to go out to, you know who you are if you're listening to this. So yeah.
Okay, and as you said, you are a big part of the community, Kenny. When we finish the podcast, what we'll do is we'll wrap up with where people can find you online, because you've got the YouTube channels, blog posts, LinkedIn, information
prolific
everywhere. So
poster. Yes.
We're all there, but all great content. So we'll finish with that, so people end up with it, and we'll stick it in the notes on the video as well. Okay, so where do we want to start this journey, James? Have you got Liz? Where would you like to go first?
I think the most probably the thing that people have been noticing most recently is the Power BI, because that's been in Wave 25 that came through in the autumn, that was probably the single most notable wow that people saw, and that was a big piece of work that has come through. People are still, I think the user community, Kenny, is just getting their head around that, and some of them installing it. I think your telemetry will probably show you the adoption is still early days. but you've now in 26, you've gone and added a load more kind of dashboards for loads of manufacturing reporting as well in there, as well as redoing loads of the Excel reports. So what's the kind of strategy? What was the thinking behind adding, Power BI, and where do you see the different components fitting in the overall picture?
Yeah, I mean, the strategy I developed 3 years ago was this BI triangle that we have been evangelizing in our documentation and in conference sessions. And it's really about tailoring. Okay, let me tell you the background for that. So I had so many discussions with fellow PMs, program managers, and people from partner community about one of the questions I got a lot was, which tool should I use, right? And it was all the conversations was around picking a tool, right?
Yeah.
Which and with my background in BI, I knew that was the wrong approach. That's the platform or the tools manufacturer approach to things. But if you think about someone building a house, the architect, the design comes first, and only then do you decide whether you use this size of nails or this or screws or whatever. So that's why we very early on put this idea of the BI triangle as a way to map scenarios for different personas and describe kind of what is needed if you're in a leadership position, what is needed if you're in a manager position, and what is needed if you are what I tongue-in-cheek call do the real, quote-unquote, real work, the people who actually do the tasks that are ready, right? Operations, right? And these different personas have very different needs when it comes to using data. So we have this KPIs in the top for the leadership team, some kind of ad hoc analysis or easy way to pivot and kind of get different insights for a manager, or at least tailored kind of list reports. And then for operations, it's much more like, what is my next task, or what is my next things for the week, or what are my things, right? And then only then did we then map this to the different tools. So Power BI up here for the leadership and financial reporting. This is also why you see a lot of still investments in financial reporting feature. And then ad hoc analysis in Excel for the middle managers, and maybe not even reports, but could be reports, but maybe also on-screen in-client tools for operations. So that's kind of the strategy, and then that's also the capabilities we then developed, and only then do we then map that to what I call content, which is for a given role in a different or given functional area, say finance. What are then the artifacts or the content that we need to produce?
And I think you've seen the success of that, particularly around the analysis views, which have just taken off. And it's not unusual to go in and see kind of 10 different ones pinned on just one list, where they've got the different permutations, and that's exactly the way that it should be, rather than the export to Excel and kind of pivot in there and then have to do that again half an hour later to see the latest numbers. So I think that's the thing. Do you think this strategy, and this may be a little unfair question, so tell me if I'm going beyond, how far through do you see it finished? Do you think it will be constant evolution? Are you satisfied that you've got most of the boxes ticked now, or do you think we're still on that journey?
So I can't disclose too much for the future, right? So I personally would like to have some tweaks done to the data analysis feature. When you take a list or a query into analysis mode, there are things that we can improve. Maybe it's seen as smaller things, but it might be harder or more expensive to implement. So this is something I'm constantly trying to get budget to get kind of these. It's not gaps, but it's making something that is really used a lot, also loved a lot. So that's an area where I still think we can do more. and likely will do. For Excel Excel reporting as a tool capability, I think we are done there. I don't think we have any
Yeah.
feature gaps as such. So now it's only, quote unquote, only a matter of getting Excel content in there.
Driving adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for Power BI Embed, we are still evolving on that. You will see a new page type coming in version 26. So for embedding Power BI and eventually other things, hopefully. We can do more with the embed experience. One thing I would love to do is more, let's say, choice by a user to be able to maybe say on this card, like on this card or on this page or on this role center, I would like to pin maybe this visual, not only a report. So maybe some more granular control over embeddability for Power BI, both for users and for developers, is something I'm hoping to expand on. And then there's one elephant in the room, which is for larger customers, an easier way to get access to all your data. That's actually also part of the initial strategy. We have taken it so far with Roadmap that we put an article in our documentation stating that Business Central data integration to Microsoft Fabric OneLake is something that we are considering. It's on our roadmap. I just don't have a timeline to share. It's not coming here in this spring, unlikely coming in the fall, but let's see. Once we have that, I think we are pretty much done with the capabilities in analytics from the platform point of view. There's also something coming that I can't disclose more. It's not in the release plan yet. It's going to be awesome, and I don't know when it will hit the road.
Well,
but that's
you have to
that's
save
also
a
within
few
analytics.
things for the launch events and so on.
No, it's actually
completely
not.
understand that.
It's not actually holding it back for the launch event. It's just we're still making sure that it works in the quality we want. And once we have that, it will be rolled out. So I don't know exactly when. It's another team that is driving this, but I have tried it and seen it, and it's pretty amazing. So that's something that will make a lot of users happy.
You keep us on the edge of the seat there.
Yeah.
I think one of the kind of I think everybody recognises that you have been on a journey. You've come an awful long way. Yes, there are a few outstanding pieces. You mentioned one, actually, access to all your data. You say for larger customers, I think you're going to be surprised how far down the customer gauge that goes, because and it's probably not by size, to be fair. It's just by curiosity,
complexity, isn't it? If you've got customers who've got, for example, multiple production environments, have got other products that they want to bring data in from, then their reporting needs go beyond what's there, and that's where that would be an absolute game changer. I think I disagree with James a little bit where he says that we don't always need a third-party reporting tool. A lot of the time we do, and whatever form that takes, especially if there are extra levels of complexity like multiple production environments, multiple companies, those kinds of things. Where it's
I
not
totally
kind of just
agree,
specific
Liz.
that where it's one company, one customer, one company, one country. Yes, pretty much there.
easy.
But,
Yeah.
I think
but outside of that,
I totally agree with you, Liz, on two comments here. The first is, when I say larger, I probably mean more complex in their data estate, or more mature in their BI needs. And this for your second comment of additional tools. Our strategy was never intended to cover everything with both with capabilities. With capabilities, maybe, but with content, no. So we, from the start, knew that we can never be able to come with out-of-the-box reporting for both for the companies who produce super tankers and the ones that produce nails, right? That's not going to happen.
You've got to leave us something to do.
But it's also that's two different BI scenarios, two different ways to do your reporting. But what we wanted to do is to make sure that the most common scenarios have good out-of-the-box reporting, and also a way for all partners to be able to do their own. And for add-on products, the same thing. I mean, if I've been doing data warehousing for 8 years, of course, there are different ways to do that. And we are a product team that specialize in ERP products. We are not a product team that specialize in data warehouse architecture. And so that's where we kind of stop and say, fine, here you go, the world, have fun.
Yeah.
I think
sorry, James, I was going to say, we're seeing, I mean, if I'm talking from a sales perspective here, we're in a conversation with a large NAV user that's looking to go to BC in the next probably 12 months. But they were very interested in, the Power BI possibilities now with BC. They currently use Tableau as their reporting tool. So I'm not saying it's going to do absolutely everything that does, but they were very keen that they could lose that. They don't have to have a specialist team that manage reports. And so, I think whether it's large in terms of size of user count or complexity, people are looking for this, that they want to buy into that entire Microsoft ecosystem, that they've got the skills for Power BI and they can now use them more substantially for Business Central and that data lake. One lake you were talking about coming, that is going to become more and more important. We've had conversations about Fabric. It's not been an area we've got a lot of expertise in, but we're starting to look at it because the conversation is coming up, and how does Business Central fit in with that. So it's interesting that those you're joining the dots there, I think.
And I think there are an increasing number of people out there who want to organizations adopting Business Central or looking at Business Central who already have a Power BI implementation of some fame or skills. It's probably the most common BI skill because of the 10 years of mass adoption that it's had. And so they're the people who pick up and they're looking at the dashboards and saying, right, how can we build? So I think giving them access to the data, yes, the APIs are great, but they're probably not all built for reporting and built to support specific scenarios. So I think a scenario where Business Central has always solved because of its flexibility and its get out of jail card is that flexibility. Lots of people buy it because that the reporting, supporting that, like the Excel reporting, has got way more flexible and actually has reduced a lot of the customization we've needed to do, because we can start to stick that in the Excel report rather than having to have the data in the core system.
And I'm looking at telemetry for uptake of these features, and I can see that Excel layouts, the usage of that is just growing and growing. And I have in my Connect goals with my manager that I will stop evangelizing when we get to 50% monthly active tenants. So that's kind of when I would declare success. And we're not there yet, but I think we are close to 25% now on all customers that use Excel layouts or reports on a monthly basis. So we're getting there.
I think there is a concept that we recognize, Kenny, which is we do an implementation, people settle on a way of working and they just tend to carry on with that. And actually part of what we have to do is go back and evangelize to those existing customers. Hey, look, have you seen this? There's a better way.
Yeah.
And that's not always.
It is a real challenge that, if we were doing a new implementation today, then yes, of course, we would talk to them about Excel reports and they would adopt those as part of their day-to-day. For the existing customers who have an alternative that works, it's quite difficult sometimes to get them to throw that away and adopt something different, even if ultimately it's a better solution or more feature-proof solution. So that's our challenge, is to keep that education going for our customers so that they can take advantage of all the stuff that you guys are doing. Even if they haven't implemented if they implemented 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and have come up with solutions for the things that were missing then, we need to kind of keep educating them.
We've discovered that SaaS doesn't drive adoption automatically. They get the new feature, they get the latest update, but it doesn't change behavior automatically.
Right.
And you actually have to go and do as you do, which is, talk a lot more about why they should change behavior.
And reporting has almost become a phase two, because people talk about reporting in the sales cycle, and we're great. They've got the abilities to do it, but then they get absolutely consumed with getting the project rolled out and going live, and then they're almost like a big sigh of relief. We're live, and they go, okay, now what do we do reporting?
Yeah,
And it's
I
like,
think
okay,
Kenny, we
now we've got
talked
to
before when we
re-engage.
had a call before that for our customers, it's really difficult until they get the data in for them to really see what benefit they can get from what's there. So I think sometimes they might spend time doing things that are maybe unnecessary, because until they get their data and they can see how they can do it, it doesn't really mean anything. And that's why it tends to get pushed. So they go live, get all the operational stuff sorted, then they go, right, we need some reports.
But the
And
more
then
out
they've got the
the
data
box
to see how
stuff,
it looks live then,
but when it's out of the box, that's so much easier to show them. The analysis views, as James has hinted to, wow, they get it and they love it. So I think that makes it, if it's easier, it's going to be more used.
And actually,
But this is interesting. Oh, sorry, James.
The one
just
we
want to
haven't.
comment.
Yeah, go.
Oh, sorry. This is super interesting for me to hear also with my background in BI, because I see like BI and ERP as kind of, they need to go together. Like ERP is processes and like making sure you have IT behind processes, and BI is that you use data to make sure that these processes are optimal. So I hope in the future that when partners do implementation projects, that they think about not slapping reporting on the side, but actually thinking about how reporting is an integrated part of the ERP implementation. Here's a process that we implement in ERP, and while we do it, we also think about the type of reporting we do on this, not after the fact. Oh, how could we then report on this? But this is our account receivable process, and these are the analytical tools that help us like make this lean and mean and make sure that we don't leave money, so things like that. So making it much more strategic in the project, I think would be great.
I'd break that down, because actually, I would say during the project, we're very focused on what you need to report on. So we want to make sure the data is there and make sure that it's as easy as possible to report it by, because let's have the schema in a way that's not going to be impossibly complex. I think what people don't always understand is the representation of how it's displayed and how it's best presented. And they sometimes, you struggle to do that, particularly around, bikes, office furniture or coffee machines, until we've got an amount of their data in their system. It's done. I mean, the one reporting tool actually that again has been a game changer for me is the Word, the document reporting. So we've kind of moved over, and I think hopefully the majority of your telemetry is showing the majority of people are starting to use Word reports now as a default, rather than that should be, I think, way up there on the curve of adoption, because it should be.
So that's actually part of the initial reporting strategy, was leave document reporting out of it, because there was so much confusion about
Yes.
When we talked about modernizing reports. Oh, will you then change our invoice layouts and things like that? So I would love to talk about document reporting. Let's maybe move that out of this conversation and do it for another time. There's a lot of a similar strategy developed and being executed upon in this space.
But that's the one we have to have there and working for the go live period.
Yep.
Then everything else, the operational reporting becomes next, and then it moves around your triangular up to the management first, and then up to the top level of KPI reporting.
Kenny, one of the things you said at the beginning, and it's obviously massive on people's radar now, is security, right? People, whenever we talk to anybody, I get fed up of filling questionnaires in about security, and I always just back it off to Microsoft. But you mentioned a little bit about that and your team have been working. Do you want to go into a bit more detail about
Sure.
what's happening and evolving with BC on that front?
Yes. So I think 5 years ago at a Directions, we did some Directions conference. We did some sessions about security, and we realized that our documentation around security compliance auditing was, let's say, spread all over. So it was actually very hard to get an overview of security as a topic. So we created a landing page with an AKA link, aka.ms/BC security, where we kind of dumped all of our content in there. We cross-linked to everything we knew. And then I used that as an opportunity. Whenever I got a security question, I kept updating that landing page and this. And what happened with that is I don't get any questions about security anymore that I cannot answer by just pointing there. Say, go figure, right? So that's something that partners should know and probably even point to any prospects who have security questions, because we try to put all of it out there. Before I answer your question a little bit more about security, this I think is also something I have reflected upon the last months about. I think our product group culture about openness have changed since I joined the team 8 years ago until now. The way we communicate on YouTube, on LinkedIn, even on Yammer, the way we collaborate with the community, both customers, partners, and the way we try to, as much information as possible is publicly available. I know Compete Decks will still have under a partner portal, but there's no reason why our security docs should not be available for this security-minded CFO or CIO or someone to take a look. Now, within Microsoft, we are 1 year, I would say, into a huge initiative called SFI, Secure Future Initiative. This is the largest security project on the planet. Like the amount of engineering resources that we are putting into hardening services, hardening things, like at some point, sometimes even I think this is ridiculous, but it's not. Like give you an example from last week. I was working with some writers somewhere, I don't know where they are, and they told me they were going to change some screenshots from an event log thing in documentation that I added 8 years ago because of a GUID and a session. Like that session is not alive anymore. That was in memory 8 years ago. But even like aligning session GUIDs to some standardized things, it's down to that. Like it's the scrutiny is ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, but it's so intense. You have no idea. And this means the Business Central Online, the product processes around it is just it's just, I would say, a security muscle that no other company probably can put into their products and the way they host things.
I guess as Microsoft's such a big target, you almost need that, don't you? Because of the name. But it's great to know that that's the level, the granular level you go down to. And I guess that's it with security. It's great doing the big things, but if you leave something else somewhere, a vulnerability, people will find it in the world that we live in.
And also, you need to be kind of mindful of what the threat is going to be in 3 years' time when some of these horrible people are using AI to kind of discover and the permutations of what they're going to do and kind of so that building in advance of needing it I think is absolutely right and brilliant to see, even when sometimes there's an element of this is a little bit more complicated. This is a bit more involved in terms of the setup and the authorizations and some of the processes you've got to do to. It's the equivalent of locking your door when you leave home. You're a little bit stupid if you don't.
And we have a motto or a principle called assume breach, and that's been in ever since I joined Microsoft, even probably before. That means we actually assume in our designs and security reviews that we already have a threat actor operating somewhere in our infrastructure. And then we design things from there. So that means we assume that, I don't know, someone is owning already part of Azure, and therefore we need to make sure if they do so, they can't really use that for much. So that's when we do, the amount of encryption of data is intense. We encrypt the disks. So if someone steals a hard disk in a data center with customer data, they can't use it. We encrypt the protocols. We encrypt secrets in memory. So think about why would we do that in memory? Well, if someone takes a memory dump of a Business Central server, they can't use that for anything because all secrets have been encrypted there. So it's a mindset that permeates everything, and where we really go deep in hardening product service processes.
And I think a lot of partners. You were I remember talking to you a couple of years ago at one of the conferences, and you kind of opened my eyes to kind of the threat. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, actually, and kind of I came back and said, guys, we need to raise our game and kind of push our default behavior to a different level. And so, thank you for that, because that certainly, it would be mandatory now, but it wasn't then, and it enabled us to get prepared. So I think it's really good.
We as partners as well, don't we forget about that work, because it's the unseen stuff, the security. We see all the new features and functionality that come out, and we're always having a little bit of a moan that it's not quick enough or it's not quite what we were expecting we want. And you forget that there's all this other stuff going on in the background, which is essential to the security and the credibility of the product. But we don't always give acknowledgement to that. So it's good to have you here championing those guys and that team as well. So
I mean, more than 50% of all engineering resources in our team is spent on what we call fundamentals. So it's security, reliability, availability, performance, stability, things like that. And that leaves only 50% of engineering capacity to deal with bugs, lifeside issues, and then only then do we get to feature work. So that's why if it was all building new stuff and never having to think about the rest, we could of course evolve quicker. But I think it's the right decision to make sure that the foundation is sound, and that's where we keep investing.
Well, I think, Kenny, you said at the start you're part of the server team, and you mentioned the word performance, and Liam mentioned the word quick. I think that's an area where we've seen massive gains, and particularly, I always say to clients, since Microsoft have started running SaaS systems, they really do understand performance, and it's just been epic, the progress in that front, to the point that it's been a real change for Business Central. We are doing implementations now as a norm, which would have been a lot of tuning, a lot of effort if we could have done them at all 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Liz, you don't, in customers, performance, we still get performance issues, but we have the ability with the telemetry to sort them, and usually it's not Microsoft.
Not always, sometimes, but definitely not always, and it's usually, two processes fighting for each other that we can separate, and we can find that information much easier. And it is unusual now that we have to log performance issues in Microsoft without any real clue as to what is happening.
We're still working on this, Liz, and this is an ongoing effort. Something I started together with some colleagues, 6 years ago. This fundamentals as such is a Microsoft topic, but within Business Central, I wrote the initial specification for our leadership team. I kind of said, this is what we need to do, with input from many people. And it was an 18-page Word document with like almost one-liner things on, then we need to do this, and they said, okay, that's not going to happen. Like then that strategy document then became like a layered implementation operational strategy, where this is where we do now, this is resource governance, and we've been executing on this ever since, and we're not done. Probably never will be done with performance, because then some other way of using Business Central will pop up, and we need to deal with that. But I have some very promising numbers I heard yesterday from one of our engineers on recent developments that I hope we can validate more globally, and even get better scale and better, like, we want to have fewer waiting for it moments. That's the main goal for performance, have been ever since we started.
I think we see it almost like you're in the F1 space now, where it's incremental, and you can always make it faster, and the race teams will continue to push the envelope, but it's fast.
But we don't want it to go so fast that it careers off the road.
No, maybe.
Yeah, we don't want James behind the wheel.
No. I think look, I think the whole agent piece is probably the biggest change in kind of the way that you use the application that I've seen ever, arguably, and I'm glad that's now in the public domain, because that's really exciting. That's still early doors. I'm sure that's going to put more demands on the system to kind of pull together the information to drive the logic that people just do in their head. Every agent cycle is going to kind of be individual. People tend to remember stuff from the last time they did that process. So the demands on the system are not going to get any less, Kenny.
But I think maybe there's a difference. So my initial goal with our performance work was to have the user experience. The user should feel that it was swift. Yeah. Background processes and batch jobs doesn't really matter. I mean, they will eventually do their things. And maybe agents, even though agents are using the UI or a layer below the UI, the agent doesn't care if something takes a few seconds, right? So maybe the performance of the waiting time for things will not matter too much for an agent, as long as the agent finish the task in the background in a decent amount of time. So
I think that's probably perversely it's while we're in the preview stage, because we're watching a process and we're going, review one, do that,
right? Yeah,
and then waiting for the subsequent. When you have lots of different agents and kind of you'll move on to another review you need to do and another task you need to do, and you'll interleave them. So the first one hasn't finished.
Yeah.
So it's perception at the moment, I think.
And maybe the nirvana with agents would be that you wake up in the morning and there's a kind of list of things you need to go and approve, and then that agents did for you while you were sleeping, and then you go on with other things, and now there are other things. So you never really need to look at the progress bar.
Yeah, you
of
never
an
just
agent.
sit watching it work, because that defies the point of the agent in the first place. You might as well do it yourself, hadn't you?
Right.
I think to bring this round full circle, a lot of the reporting, the operational reporting, is required because people need to go and see if there is anything to do.
Yeah.
And so the concept is a lot of people, their task for the day is to get through all of the sales orders that need to be approved, or whatever is on their list of different columns. And at the moment, they have to navigate around the application and pull different lists up and apply a filter and see what's there. Agents, arguably, as you say, are going to put it into a queue of, this is the most important thing for you to do next, and kind of prioritize. And that, that evolution, I think, is going to be amazing to see. And will change the way they use the UI full stop.
That's interesting, James. Also, I want to say something about that in regards to Power BI. So, and something I want to start evangelizing soon. I've been evangelizing what's called Power BI metrics for some time. But when more and more customers actually use the Power BI reports, they already, as part of their Power BI license, have Power BI metrics, which is a way for them to define the dashboards where they need, like, they can basically point to any KPI in any report and track this their own way with their own thresholds. And they can get alerted in Teams on whatever they like. And full self-service, it's already there. For anyone using Power BI today, this is part of Power BI Pro. What this means is that any executive leadership or management or anyone using Power BI could have agents. It's not agents, it's just metrics, right? But they could track whenever their accounts receivable rate goes beyond something. Or they can track any business KPI where it's important that they want to see if it's improving or declining and have different stages for that. They can just set that and have alerts in Teams, and they can do this today. There's no magic, it's not agents, but it's still the same idea about being proactive with your analytics. So that's something, once we have many more customers on this, I might kind of do another round of evangelizing
But more
this.
people are using those kind of things in their day-to-day life, aren't they? Like while we're on
Yeah.
this call, I had a notification on my watch to say that my base heart rate has changed. So that kind of alerting you when
You got
something has
so
changed.
excited about the new capabilities.
I know.
Obviously.
I think it's gone down actually rather than up, but that's.
But
No
it's kind of,
offense.
yeah, and you know, one of the differences between kind of CRM D365, Kenny, as you know, it's had SLAs built in, and one of the things that customers have typically liked, because a lot of those alerts are not, it's not an overall quantity or an amount or whatever. It's actually, this hasn't happened for this period of time, and it should have. You know, that's what we've told customers to do. So I think there's a lot of and you know, that's down
so
to
many
us as
different
partners,
examples.
because you can't,
got to show
you know,
customers
if you
how
tried
they
to
can
build
use
that, every customer will have a different set of rules that they run their business by. And I think that's, you know, that's the next stage of this whole piece, is to kind of turn it into something that customers go, wow, this is spot on for me, as opposed to standard Business Central. I'm aware we've been on this call for quite a long time, and your time is really valuable. So I think we'd probably better wrap it up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks. I mean, I think first and foremost, you can tell you're talking to someone from the product team rather than the sales team, because we've gone through 45 minutes. We've not mentioned Copilot. So thank you, Kenny, because we always have. That's the first time in about 3 years that's happened. So that's good. But yeah, where can people find you, Kenny? Yeah, let's just finish that, because I think you've got a lot of great content out there.
So I'm an open networker on LinkedIn. I recently started a YouTube channel for not competing with ourselves in the product team. We also have a great YouTube channel there, but more for kind of videos where, like, the odd case, or I discovered this, or so, and probably more like older things instead of the newer things. Newer things will go on the official channel. So I'm also active on Yammer, and the way actually a lot of the analytics content that you see coming out in manufacturing, in particular in manufacturing in here in 26.1, it's going to be amazing. That was co-developed with the community. That was we have some SMEs in manufacturing where we wrote the spec. We evaluated with them. We are on Yammer. We put all the reports there. People can see and interact, and that means all that feedback goes back into the reporting. Because I'm not, even though I own reporting, also all the content, I'm not an expert within all the functional areas. You are, and all the other partners and customers are. So if people feed me with the great scenarios, then I can, with the funding I have, make sure some of it makes it into the product. Without feedback, I'll just dream up something that might look good in a demo, but not be what customers really need.
I think that's good, because we do say to customers, and I think this proves the fact, we ask them for their feedback, because we say, look, especially with James's connections, that feedback will land certain times with the product team. But it's fantastic to hear it from your side as well, that there is a benefit to the product team when they hear it from end users of what's useful and what they need.
I think the manufacturing reporting, as something that hadn't had love for 25 years probably. Some of those reports go back to the days when manufacturing as a separate product from Navision was merged into the base product, to my knowledge. And, it was kind of, yes. So that embarrassment is over now, Kenny. And thank you for that. It's fantastic. As a manufacturing focused partner, it's great to see.
Fantastic. Well, Kenny, thank you very much. I've got one final question. Because we're on the eve of the release, what's your favourite feature that's in the spring release in 25?
Wow.
Choosing between his children.
So this is difficult because there are different impacts and different times of impact. I'm fairly certain that agents and co-pilots will eventually be a hugely impactful thing for our product. What we have done the last years are experimenting with different features, different ways of infusing AI. Some are great, some might not be the right ones, and that's the only way you can do when you experiment. So I think the focus there in the feature roadmap on AI, Copilot, and agents is correct, right, on a longer term. While we do that, I'm trying to fill some urgent needs within analytics and make sure that we also get bang for the buck. And fortunately, I've got the right amount of budget and a team behind that. So that means I feel like we are investing in both areas at the same time, which I really like. I can't pick. Can I pick 2, 3?
Yeah, pick 2. Pick 2 or 3. Yeah.
I'm very happy about our investments in financial reporting. Old feature going back to early days of Navision, that we just gave some love, some more love. That I think we listened to the community, and I think we implemented 15 of their ideas in this wave, and then so I think I'm curious about how that will be looked upon with customers. And then I think our investment with Excel in manufacturing reporting, I'm curious to see how that will land. Just to give you context, we took every single analytical report in manufacturing and modernized it. So it's either gone and replaced, or it got new layouts, or it got new reports. And then on top of that, like classical reporting, we then did the same in Power BI. So that's kind of the way we take one functional area, and we took manufacturing and kind of gave it, which it's almost complete now. A little bit that will be dripping into wave 2, but then we have completely modernized that area from analytics. And I think that's a huge thing. And then we have some secret things that you're going to see later. That's also going to be amazing.
Go on, tell us a secret.
We won't tell anybody. We won't put it on YouTube. Honestly,
these NDAs, it's they're a pain but necessary. Yes.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, Kenny. We appreciate it. It's early in the morning for you, so thank you for taking the time to join us. I think it's been great. James, Liz, as always, thank you for your contribution as well. Love the t-shirt as well. I think we'd have to step up our merch there with the Solver things rather than the Stranger things, so we'll have to step up the Tecman branded stuff as well. But thank you, and thank everyone who either watches or listens to this. If you've got any questions, please drop them in the comments, and obviously if we manage to touch base with Kenny again, we can feed that back to him and maybe get some answers. But thank you to everyone, and thank you for joining this episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics.